Hey guys, I'm John Setzler. Welcome back to the Kamado Joe cooking channel. Christmas is just around the corner, so let's fire up our Kamado Joe Classic and do a fruitcake. Let's get started. We're going to get started here. I've lit a fire in the center of the firebox of my Kamado Joe Classic, and I'm going to set the divide and conquer flexible cooking rack in place with the heat deflector in the low position and the grill grates up high. And we're going to set up for an indirect cook here today between 325 and 350 degrees. In order to get my Classic to stabilize at around 325 to 350, I'm going to start out with my bottom vent about halfway open, and I'm going to close the top vent to about halfway until we start to approach 325 to 350, and if I need to, I'll cool it down by closing it up, or if I need to warm it up, I'll open it up a little higher. Okay, I'm going to start this process out in the kitchen here by mixing up my dry ingredients. We've got a lot of ingredients to work with today, so I want to try to keep everything organized. I've got 1 3/4 cup of all-purpose flour, 1 1/2 teaspoons of kosher salt, 1 whole teaspoon of baking powder, 1 whole teaspoon of baking soda, and I'm just going to whisk all that together, and we're going to set that aside, and we'll be coming back to it. We're going to get started next by getting our cake together. I'm going to start out with 1 cup of apple juice here. We're going to use a 2.5 quart saucepan. I've got 1 cup of whiskey, so we're going to use apple juice and whiskey to do this. I've got 1 cup of golden raisins, 1 cup of dried cherries, 1/2 cup of dried chopped apricots, 1/2 cup of dried cranberries, 1/2 cup of chopped dried figs, 1/4 cup of chopped candied ginger. I've got the zest of 1 lemon and the zest of 1 orange, and I'm going to turn the heat on here to high, and I'm going to stir this up, and we're going to bring this to a boil. After this comes to a boil, I'm going to stir it a little bit as we go, and we're going to let this cook at a boil for about 2 minutes. Okay, after we've been boiling for about 2 minutes here, I'm going to remove this from the direct heat and turn the heat down to medium. And to this, I'm going to add 1 cup of granulated sugar, 10 tablespoons of unsalted butter, 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, 1/2 teaspoon of ground ginger, 1/4 teaspoon of ground allspice, 1/4 teaspoon of ground clove, and I'm going to stir this up until our butter's melted here and the sugar's dissolved just off the burner. Okay, our butter's almost dissolved and our sugar's definitely dissolved here, so I'm going to put this back on the burner, back over high heat, and we're going to bring this back to a boil. Okay, now that we've returned that to a boil, I'm going to reduce my heat to medium, and we're going to let this cook for 5 to 8 minutes, and we're going to stir it occasionally until it thickens up. Okay, I've been going for about 8 minutes here, so I'm going to turn the heat off. We're going to take this off the heat, and we're going to let that cool in the pot there for 15 minutes. Okay, I've let this cool here for 15 minutes, and this stuff's really thickening up nicely, and it smells amazing. I wish I could just dig into that right here. So the next thing we're going to do is start folding in our flour mixture. I've moved my flour mixture into another bowl where I can more easily get it out in smaller bits. I'm going to incorporate a little bit of that and stir it in, and then I'll add some more until we get it all combined. And I'm just going to stir that until I've got our flour completely incorporated. And then as the last step here, I've got 2 eggs, 2 large eggs that I'm just going to put in there like that, and we're going to stir those in until we get those completely incorporated here as well. Okay, now we're ready to move on to the next step. Okay, I've got a cast iron 10-inch skillet here that we're going to use, and don't tell anybody you saw me do this, but I'm going to use one of these round pre-cut pieces of parchment paper in the bottom of this pan, because this recipe's got a lot of sugar in it, and I really don't want to take any chances on that sticking in this pan and making it hard for me to get out. So I'm going to take some cooking spray and hit that pan with it and the parchment paper. And then we're going to spoon our fruitcake mixture into this pan. And then I'm just going to spread that out evenly. And as soon as our grill is up to temperature, we're going to take that bad boy outside. Alright, our classic is up to temperature. We're cruising between 325 and 350. So we're going to put that bad boy right here on the grill. And I'm going to close the lid and we're going to cook this for 45 to 50 minutes until we can insert a toothpick in the middle and it come out clean. So we'll be back in a little bit to have a look. Alright, we've been going about 45 minutes here, so we want to take a look at this and see what it looks like. I've got a bamboo skewer I'm going to stick down here in the middle and see if it pulls out clean. It's almost clean. I think I'm going to give it another 5 minutes or so, but man, this thing's looking good, so we'll be back in just a few minutes. Okay, I've let this guy go for another 5 minutes, so I'm going to take this off and I'm going to take it inside. We're going to let it cool, but we got to get it out of the pan. You don't want to leave this in the pan too terribly long. Okay, I've brought this inside. I've got it sitting on a wire rack, and we're going to give it about 5 minutes in the pan to cool, and then we're going to take it out of the pan. Okay, I let that cool for 5 minutes. Then I took it out of the pan, and I've still got it on a cooling rack because this thing needs to cool completely before we go any further. It may take, I don't know, maybe an hour. While our cake's cooling, we're going to make a sugar glaze to go on top of it. I'm starting out in a small mixing bowl here with 3/4 of a cup of confectioner's sugar, and I'm going to add about a tablespoon of Grand Marnier, which is an orange cognac, and I'm going to add about a tablespoon of whole milk. And we're going to mix this up and see how it goes. I may have to add some more liquid, and we'll just see. But you want this to be kind of loose because we're going to make it into a drizzle, and I'm going to put it in a squeeze bottle with a little spout where I can drizzle it nicely across the top of this cake. So that's looking pretty good. You can see the kind of consistency I have here. That's about what we're looking for, something about like that. If it ends up being too runny, just add just another teaspoon or so of confectioner's sugar, and if it's too tight, just add a little bit more liquid. So this looks pretty good, so we'll set this aside until we're ready to finish this cake. Okay, we've let this cake cool completely, so now we're going to drizzle the top with some of that beautiful glaze that we made. And then beyond that, I'm going to put a little bit of orange zest on the top as a little garnish as well. Now we're ready to have a taste. Guys, you got to give that one a try. I'm not even going to tell you how good that is. Merry Christmas. Until next time, it's John Setzler from the Kamado Joe Cooking Channel.